Holden Health. Expertise, technology, experience.
Hello again, David Holden, naturopath, biochemist and biohacking healing coach. I wanted to talk a bit about diet. I've been talking to a lot of my patients this last few months about the importance of blood type dieting. Now, this is something that's poo-pooed by a lot of doctors, but they haven't read the 30 years of research because most doctors don't read nutrition journals. And I want to give you a bit of background. There was a very important book that came out in the late 1980s, early 90s called Eat Right for Your Type by Dr. Peter D'Adamo. And he was a naturopathic doctor trained in the States and really knew his stuff. And he did a lot of research and discovered what's called a leptin response. When you mix blood with particular proteins from certain foods, if they clump and cause a leptin response where they stick together or agglutinate, which you can see on a slide, you don't even need a microscope, you can see it on a slide quite easily, then you know that there's proteins in your blood that's reacting with the proteins in food. So what he found out was there's distinct differences between A blood types, O's, B's, and ABs. Now, those are the four main types, but there's actually a lot of other types, subtypes, which are very small in the population, and they tend to get missed. They have slightly different dietary needs as well. So I just want to give you a brief summary. It's very important to know what blood type you are for a number of reasons. And if you've donated blood or you've had surgery, they'll always check your blood type first. So if something goes wrong and they have to give you a blood transfusion, they can give you the right type. Or they can give you O negative, which is what I am, which is the universal donor. So anyone can accept O negative if they need it in an emergency, an accident, or somewhere where they're bleeding out and they stop the bleeding and need to put blood in to save the person's life. So that's very important. Now, let's just summarize it. A blood types are the natural vegetarians. They have longer digestive tracts, smaller livers, smaller spleens, smaller kidneys than any of the other blood types, and they're basically adapted and designed to not digest a lot of red meat. They much prefer vegetable sources of protein, but they do well on fish and seafood. So if you like fish and seafood and you're an A, not a deal, not a problem. You don't have to be super strict with these. I still find A blood types that like red meat and would like to eat it, 2-3 times a week. I would caution them and say that it's probably better if you go to white meats like free-range chicken, fish, bit of seafood. If you're hankering for a steak, maybe once a month, once a fortnight, maximum once a week is what I would suggest. Go more seafood. A blood types were the people that cultivated around the coasts, and so they're adapted to seafoods and the planted organic gardens, so they ate a lot of vegetables and some fruits as well. Now, B blood types are the natural pescatarians. They are only found around coastlines, not so much inland, and they have adapted to a heavy seafood diet, much like Maori and Pacifica in New Zealand. There's a big percentage of those that are B blood types, as well as ABs. And ABs were interbreeding of the coastal peoples and people a bit more inland, and then we developed the AB blood type. So they're a mixture of vegetarian, pescatarian is ideal for them. There are some changes. I'm just giving you generalizations here, because you don't have to be too focused and too strict on this unless you've got major dietary imbalances and problems with your gut, like leaky gut syndrome or irritable bowel syndrome, in which case you need to be a lot stricter about food combining. But that's for another talk. So talking about blood types, O's, like me, are the natural omnivores. They like lots of variety, lots of animal protein as well as vegetable protein. So I'm an O negative. And I think most of you know my story. It's written in the Biohacking Healing free ebook. And I've done a couple of videos on that, and I'll do more. Basically, I was a vegetarian vegan for seven years as a vegetarian. And about 15 months as a vegan while I was training in naturopathic college, and I've never felt sicker in my life. I lost weight, I had no energy, I was completely far too yin, if you understand what that means in Chinese medicine terms. I was fading away. A stiff breeze would blow me away. So, and I was meditating a lot every day. I was effectively a monk for a lot of those years. And so I thought red meat was tamasic and not so good for me, using an Ayurvedic term. And I wanted to look at alternatives. And I had some dreams. I dreamt I was a grizzly bear tearing the flesh off salmon. And I had this dream 3 nights in a row. And I'm pretty sure that was my subconscious saying, you need to eat some animal protein. And so I snuck out of the ashram, ate some fish, and my energy went up for about a week, then came slowly down again. I repeated the experiment, same thing happened, did it three times in total, and realized I'm not meant to be a vegetarian, I'm not meant to be a vegan, and I left the ashram, and the rest is history, and discovered naturopathic medicine, and that's where we are now. So I found from my own personal experience the power of eating for your blood type. So I do urge many vegetarians who are O blood types to at least go pescatarian and eat some fish, but ideally every now and then have a steak, and they'll notice the difference in their metabolism. There's something about O blood types that need the hemoglobin molecule from animal proteins. And we need to do more research to find out more intricacies, but the Diademo father and son have done 30 years of naturopathic research proving this leptin clumping response from different foods with the different blood types. So we've covered A's, we've covered ABs, we've covered O's. There's a few in between, but most people can follow an omnivorous diet, but just vary the amount of red and organ meats you have depending on your blood type. But the other big issue I have to talk about with nutrition, and this is very current at the moment, is the issue with 2 anti-nutrients that are very heavily found in vegetarian and particularly vegan diets. And they are oxalates and they are phytates. Oxalates are oxalic acid, form very fine crystals, and they can give you a lot of joint discomfort. So someone who's got a lot of rheumatism or pre-arthritic conditions in their joints and gets pain, particularly on waking up and first moving around, what we call the rusty gait syndrome, then gets better as you use it. Usually those are oxalate crystals built up in the joint tissue. Now, this might surprise you, but the 3 highest foods in oxalates were 3 of my favorite foods I used to eat lots of. I don't now, unfortunately. Raspberries, beetroot, and dark chocolate. Okay? They are really high in oxalates. Now, you can Google high oxalate foods. I recommend you do that. You'll get a whole lot of options coming up of what foods are very high in oxalates. You don't want to avoid all of them, and some of them are very high in nutrients. Berries, for instance, very high in antioxidants. Some of them have higher oxalates. Raspberries, obviously, you don't want to have any more, but strawberries are less. Blueberries are much less in oxalates, and they're probably the best bang for your buck if you want antioxidants. Blueberry smoothies are fantastic. Phytates and phytic acid are in a whole range of other foods as well. Just Google it, foods high in phytic acid and foods high in oxalic acid, OXALIC. The oxalates are worse than the phytates, but both can give particular predisposed people irritable bowel and leaky gut. So you don't want those foods in your diet in quantities regularly if you can avoid it. A little bit now and then is fine, but not all the time, not every day. And I used to be a dark chocoholic. Believe me, I love dark chocolate, sugar-free. 85% was my favorite, but I don't have nearly as much now. I will substitute with a few other nuts or coconut acid off the sugar with some sugar-free stevia chocolate powder sprinkled in it. Not very much, just enough to give it a chocolatey taste because I really like that taste. So yeah, good information to have. Oxalates, phytates, avoid them in your diet. look at going more towards your blood type. I can get a blood test done to find out what blood type you are if you don't know. It's $25 from Awanui Labs. I can give that anytime I see you for a consult, no problem. Just go and get that done. Then you know what you are and you can eat according to that type. And believe me, you'll find it easier to hold a more normal weight. Within 10% of your BMI, up or down, is what you want to aim for. That's very important as a longevity marker. People who weigh within 10% plus or minus of their BMI live 20% longer. Okay, so people who are too skinny and people who are too obese, obviously there's a problem there. So if you can get within 10% of your BMI, which I can calculate for you, or you can go onto the net and just Google and BMI calculator, put in your gender, your age, your weight, and your height, and it'll tell you what your BMI is, and it wants to be below 25, particularly for females. Males can be a little bit higher if they've got more muscle on them. But anyway, that's another subject for another time. So just to give clarity around the blood type diets and avoiding oxalates and phytates. So A blood types, more suited to vegetarianism or veganism, but are better going a little bit of pescatarian now and then for protein. If you're a vegan or vegetarian and you want to stay strict vegan or vegetarian and you're not an A blood type, you are going to have some metabolic problems. You can get pea protein powder to boost your protein levels, but I do recommend fish because it's got B12, it's got omega-3 in it, and the 3 nutrients that I test vegans and vegetarians on every time I see them, at least every 6 months at least, is B12, iron, and protein. Those are the 3 nutrients that vegans and vegetarians are low in. B12, iron, and protein. So you need to get yourself blood tested for those. If you don't know what to do, come and see me, have a consult. I will give you the sheet and the test form to go and get those things tested. So we know for sure, scientifically, if you're within the range or out of the range. And if you're out of the range, we can do something to change it. All right? So any other information on that, just text me or email me on the website, holdenhealthcare.com. And you will be getting some information soon about my new venture, biohackinghealing.com. More on that very soon. So that's David, over and out. Hope that's given you some information that you can use in your everyday life. Thank you. Take care of yourselves.